Hi, I'm Seamless, and today I'm going to show you how to make this sound. I like it on a lot of different notes, so I figured I'd just show them in different registers. Anywho, this is some more delay shenanigans, and I'm also including some older school bandpass modulation techniques with bandpass filter plus 2 notches against each other on top of stuff. And actually, I made a mistake in the original Sytrus that created the bass for this tone. And so let's kind of go from the beginning and then see what's up. The beginning is, of course, a Sytrus. Whop. Whop. What's going on there? Well, see this shape? This is like how I would do a ring modulation. I am doing ring modulation, but this is the shape that I would normally do if I were trying to do like half on, half off on the oscillator. But this was originally a shape that I was doing some modulation onto that looked like the older FM kind of gravity sounds. But then I accidentally, I was doing this ring modulation oscillator, and I thought that I was on that oscillator, but I wasn't. I was on this oscillator, and I went and made this shape. But then I was like, wait a minute, what's these harmonics here? That's because, oh snap, that's what this shape looks like when I have that harmonic engaged at that octave, and now that sounds like that. So that's what that sounds like being FM'd, and then by this extra sine wave is there being FMing it, and this is the one that's being ring modulated. This is what that sounds like without the extra oscillator. And this is being modulated by this dude. This guy's also, so he has, this guy here, number 2, has the mod input being oscillated and by the modulator X on top here. That's important because that also affects the ring modulation input. So that's being kind of an on-off experience. Number 2 is having its mod. Yep. Number 3, nope, just number 2. And then the volume on the out, nope, also that. So that's what the sound is coming out of that. And then there's this whole delay stack. So this is 3 delays going into each other in serial. And then I'm having this, they're time modulated, sort of in sync, but different. So 2 of these guys are linked to the same guy. I think this guy, nope, this guy and this guy are both linked to envelope controller number 2, and then middle dude here is linked to envelope controller number 1. This matters because they're not totally the same, but then also when you link stuff up like this, these are time knobs. And then if you want to modulate them, like if you want to actually, if you want to change the position later on, you got to do that here. You have to change the bass knobs. Otherwise, they'll just change back to wherever the envelope controller says it is. So this was mostly an experiment, these 2 guys, and getting kind of like comb filter-esque results. And mostly it's just these delays are moving in similar but different directions. Here's X mods on the 2 of them. So the range is low, and then also their range is different. And it's one of them is bipolar, the other one's not. And I'm not 100% sure on what the actual results are because there's a lot of arbitrary decisions made just to sound. It's like what sounded cool. But largely really kind of tight delays, and then they're modulated against each other. And then also on top of that, these offset is engaged. When you get offset in the stereo and a delay, it's done by changing the delay timing on the left and right channel. And that's done by changing the time. So it's a little bit like you're actually kind of creating 2 delays now. We're in the place of one that have different time variables for them. And they're being modulated. So that actually kind of spreads it out a bit and clouds it up. Which is, I did kind of like different settings on all these guys to kind of add up. And then, what else? Oh yeah, so then they all have also this engaged, and you have internal LFO modulation engaged at different rates and different speeds. But mostly I found that just that it was moving was enough to make the tone actually have a pretty big difference. So, here's what this first step sounds like. That's what that kind of phased effect is. So here's what that sounds like without any of the modulation on the top. So that like last LFO kind of on that's basically, this is moving this parameter too, but now this is very moving it like very slowly on top of what I'm already doing to move it. I've also moved the smoothing down. By default, it's over here, and it just kind of delays how fast this parameter moves according to you moving it. And it's mostly just about to prevent breakage. But the breakage sounds kind of good, but also there's a little bit of smoothing in there because the values of this are small on the MIDI kind of side of things, and that means that the steps might get steppy. Well, not that steppy, so it wasn't that big a deal. And number 2 here is other guy. So not only is this 2 different delays going on, but this is also delaying the signal coming out of here. So that's a special on top of that kind of thing because it's not parallel. So that's that. That's kind of like a combed up sound effect that we got as a result of this like delay stack. Oh yeah, so some of them have, this guy has a high pass mod on top of the feedback, which means that it's not going on at low the frequency. And so this guy also has a low pass one, which means that like it's not as much in a high frequency. They're overlapping, of course, otherwise we wouldn't hear the cool effect of the result. This one's up all the way. So that there's additional kind of layering involved there. That's again kind of one of those arbitrary ones. I made that decision so far down the chain with distortion and stuff that like it wasn't so much that I could hear the frequency split as I just heard the result of all the phase cancellation adding together. And whether I thought it was cool or not. And here's that sounds like all compressed up. So the idea here is that I wanted to get it up to a position that could then be effectively saturated by distortion. And it was mostly evening it out. I'm not even using the compressor on the top end. And it's because like I'm using kind of light touch. I'm linear phasing it too, which means that I'm having as little impact on the phase as possible at this stage, because then I'm gonna go ahead and distort it with a lot of extra additions here. So this is the module that does the distortion where it phases against the original signal so that I can do the whole high passing and effect on just the distortion itself and adding it together with the original signal to have like really clean kind of merging of it all. And I went a step further and put an EQ before that distortion module here so that the lowest frequency stuff wouldn't be involved. This is important because if you've ever like gotten kind of like unfortunate, it's kind of like sine foldy sounding dirt, it's because it is actually kind of folding. And it is kind of folding because of the sine. That's because of the sub frequency being so powerful as to do that to your sound. So I guess I got rid of that. But then a lot of this is also that like as a result, whatever's left is what's being multiplied. So how present they are will change. Yeah, it's spectral result on the other end as such. Well, let's maybe hear it too. So that guy's also adding it with this dude. And that's basically like, I just wanted to dirty up the high end without overdoing it. And this is a really complex, like spectrally complex tone right now, which means light touch is required. But the results are not that we like are not usually the result of light touches. It's usually the result of like just wrecking stuff. So you could do the just wrecking stuff because this is the shape I'm doing, and this is a pretty just wrecky shape. And then if you do this kind of surgery to it, you can like fix the problems that show up without having to resort to layering. I guess this is kind of layering, but it's phase layering. Ooh. Anyway, after that, bandpass 2 notches. That's this guy and these dudes. So I did that what sort of in the older how to bass videos when I would do this a lot. The fun was finding new starting textures to do this too, because the effect is pretty well understood. You have a bandpass to create like a main kind of character rhythm, and then you have these two dudes to create the kind of tonal texture that you get out of like the form and stuff. And then these are instead of doing it with peaks, we're doing it with holes, and we're moving the holes around and apart from each other, and that's what causes the formative stuff to kind of amass. But like, it's gonna sound the way that it sounds on pretty much no matter what you put it on, unless you find some particularly interesting tones to do it to it ahead of time, up to and including tones that already have some kind of formative quality to it. so that the thing you're doing to it isn't so much like the whole tone, and it doesn't become the thing you're focusing on. It's just kind of another thing that's adding to it. Of course, it also does the old school thing of ruining your level completely, so you gotta bring it all back with compression. This guy's a little bit harder. He has lots of the multi-band kind of crushing. I don't think I'm doing anything on top. Yeah, I'm letting it be dynamic. And that's because immediately after this, it goes. It's got a little EQ, and then it goes into this fruity balance, which is volume control, and that's this guy. This guy is doing just a really big kind of like real-time envelope. I call it real-time because it's doing the job of what an envelope would do, but I'm doing it with automation. And I'm doing it with an automation clip that changes over time. That is different for every like expression of the rhythmic output. It's not very efficient, but it is what's happening. And I'm doing this to kind of like shape the tone so that it's present more during the parts of the modulation I want it to be. And in this case, that it's kind of muddy when it gets on the lower end of the modulation. I want to avoid that. So I made this thing here, but this is going 0 to 100, and this I'm bringing it down so that it doesn't go all the way down, so that the whole thing is always there, but it's just kind of weighting it towards one side or the other depending on where I want it to be with this shape. And that's going into the delay. So there's his last delay here, which is it's his job. So like, listen to this. Basically, I made this sound, right? I got this far. I didn't have this guy at this point. This is the EQ as opposed to almost nothing going on because he's solving problems that the delay is creating. And then it gets compressed by a lot. And this is a curve conscious of the fact that we're trying to do rhythmic stuff, which means that like we don't want to undo too much of our leveling by like recompressing it out of being ducked. But like at the same time, I also kind of want to do that because like the fight in between it makes a lot of these like for me, a lot of the compression is a lot of fun to take up things that you don't normally hear very loudly. Like when you combine reverb with stuff and you hear all the airy bits kind of suddenly being like part of the tone. That's what we're doing, and we're doing it with like delay and stuff like that. So this is pre-delay, so that means that the delay is happening to it now. So this is what it sounded like before the delay. Here's what it sounds like with the delay. Not that much though. Basically just the smallest of spectral smoothing, and it's being tuned. You saw it moving around there, and this time knob is being done on number 4, and number 4 has some keyboard dragging. It is not carefully tuned. It did not really like, I didn't like calculate the milliseconds to the note values, but it is mostly just important that it's moving. That for different notes, there's different values for it. Because one of the things that gets me when you do these kinds of effects is that you hear these resonant tones, and then if you move notes and other things, and then that resonant tone does not change ever, then it just kind of burns a hole into what you remember about that sound. And this just makes sure that there's just always a different resonant tone. And it feels like a more like an instrument and not just like a series of effects. You know, that's totally what it is. Yeah. So I'm going to put this FLP up to be available to download in the description of this video. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Also, there's the summer lessons sale coming up for July and August. The slots are opened up, and if you want to get one, email me. There's information in the description of this video. And as usual, please have a nice day.